Hey, is there anything more frustrating in the world than working your butt off to set a meeting only to have the prospects you're all excited about that you've researched ghost you, disappear, no show you, and they give you no reason why, right? This stinks. So, in this week's episode, what I'm going to share with you is a couple tips and tricks to actually reduce the odds of you getting ghosted. And I'm going to touch on some other things as well. For those of you who have never joined us before, this is the Max Revenue Show, and specifically, this is what we're calling Diary of a New Producer. It's a special series that gives you a look behind the curtain into the life of Ian Cognito, a real life producer that I'm mentoring and watching him grow, right? So he is about in month number 6. This is like our 25th episode. So if you've missed the previous episodes, go check them out. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit a thumbs up button on our channel and subscribe so that the Max Revenue Show can get out to other producers out there in the world. All right, so this week, Ian and I, like I said, we talked about no-shows. We also talked about the concept of renting clients. We talked about quoting, and one of the top questions that you should be asking your prospects when you're putting together a submission. And then the last thing we talked about is how to handle someone who says, we just renewed. So I'm going to get into all 4 of those things on this week's episode. So without further ado, let's start with no-showing, right? Ghosting. So Ian set some meetings. He had like 3 no-shows last week. And so we talked about, like, how are you setting these meetings? One of the important things to look at is when you're setting the meeting on that first call, are you just kind of feel like you're forcing them into the meeting, or is it conversational? Because in that first meeting, in that first call, if it's conversational, you should kind of be able to filter out the tire kickers or the people that aren't really serious. Getting meetings with people who are just going to ghost you later on doesn't do you any good. Maybe it puffs your statistics a little bit, but ultimately that's not what we want. So we talked about that, right? Like on that first call, how's it going? And I didn't get the sense from talking with Ian that he's pressuring people into meeting with him. So just a couple takeaways and tactical things I said that he should do after they agree to that meeting is, first of all, right before you hang up the phone, just say, all right, great. I'm going to confirm with you a day before just to make sure we're still good to go. After you hang up that phone call, what you should do is send something tangible in the mail, just a thank you card, maybe a Starbucks gift card. I don't care what it is. A book. I wrote a book, right? So anything that you have tangible, send it to them in the mail, because that way they're going to be way less likely to forget about you. I set meetings with people sometimes. I see it pop up on my calendar. I don't ghost people, but I see it. I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And I might cancel and say, hey, let's reschedule. So I think you got to have touch points between that initial meeting set conversation and when you actually are supposed to meet with them. So that's the first thing, is just send something tangible. Of course, then you send an email, but then a week out, if you set the meeting a month out, make sure a week out you're confirming. And then the day before you're reconfirming and putting something like this saying, hey, Bob, excited to see you tomorrow. Here's the 3 things that we're going to talk about, and anything else you want to address, I'm open to discuss with you. That's such a key thing to send. I think it shows people that you're serious, you're professional. So make sure you're always doing that when you're setting meetings, and it'll be good for you if you can do that. And the only other thing that I would add to the whole like meeting setting thing is if you can try to meet in person, that is ideal. Now, I don't think you should necessarily drive 3 hours for a 15-minute intro meeting, but if it's a big enough prospect, maybe on that first call, you can kind of get a feel for how much pain are they really in, and is it worth going out in person? I think if it's definitely within an hour, you should always go. If it's outside of that range, just ask yourself size of business. And Ian and I kind of said, hey, if it's 10 or 15 or more revenue, go meet them. If they have pain, go meet them. And if they're willing to meet in person. So that's the beautiful part about phone prospecting, right? You can go meet someone, drive 2 hours, meet them, get back, and you still have probably 2 hours in your day to make some phone calls if you're organized. So so hopefully this will help Ian. Hopefully it'll help you avoid being ghosted. And at the end of the day, it's going to happen to all of us. The last thing I would say on these people who ghost you or no show, don't write them off. People get busy, right? Because of my title on LinkedIn, I get hit up by a bunch of people, and like I said, I've canceled meetings and stuff. But if you've talked to them once and you've set that meeting, you kind of got that in with them, stay on them, right? Timing might just be bad. And I've said this before, but complacency is your top competitor. So don't take it personal. Don't be like, oh my gosh, they ghosted you. It's nothing personal most of the time, right? And now if they keep doing it over and over again, then maybe you see the writing on the wall. But once or maybe even twice, keep on them. Play the long game. Okay. Second thing I told you in the beginning, we talked about is renting clients, and this was more of a story for me, but I had a client that's one of my bigger clients that just emailed me last week. They're significantly shrinking. It's going to be like a third of the size of revenue. Every deal matters, especially when you're growing your book. I'm only 2 years and 4 months in since restarting, so every deal matters and it hurts. But that's why you always got to have a full pipeline. And I've heard this before, but someone said, "Hey, all of our clients are kind of on borrowed time. You're renting all your clients." I know we want to think like, "Nope, I have my clients for life." And yes, you will have clients that you keep for 10, 20, 30 years, but things happen. People get bought, people bring in new ownership, bring in money, they go out of business, they leave you, some new market comes on the block you don't have a contract with, and they come in there and just smoke you, right? In terms of price. So things happen. So just have that mindset of you're renting your clients. And if you could try to get, obviously you want to be renting all of them for about 5 years, get paid on them for 5 years. Some really good things will happen if you're always writing new business. And that's the whole point. When I was talking with Ian, I said, you always got to be prospecting, always be writing new business, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Okay, third thing we talked about is when you're quoting, this doesn't mean competitively. It can mean even just you got the AOR and you're putting together a submission, or you are competitively quoting. Either scenario doesn't really matter. But this is a really important question that I think to ask at the end of the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting. I don't really care when you ask it. But that it's something like this. Like when you're talking with Bob, be like, "Hey, Bob, so my job is to sell your risk to the underwriters. Pretend I'm an underwriter for a second. What are the top things that you're doing that would excite me about your company?" Just brag about yourself for a minute and just take bullet points and put this in your submission. Just asking this question will help differentiate you. Okay, and the last thing I said I would talk about is when a client says, prospect, "Hey, we just renewed." Well, if they showed some interest before that, one thing I like to say is like, "Hey, understand timing's off. You renewed 2 months ago. However, if we're going to talk again next year when we have more time, you're probably not going to move unless you know me a little bit or we have some type of relationship. Can I come out like next month, just grab lunch or just stop by your office just to shake your hand, meet you in person, just so you can start to establish a relationship with me?" That's it. It's nothing special, guys. This is just old school Dale Carnegie stuff, I guess you could say. So that's what Ian and I talked about this week. I don't know if it was 25, 26. If you missed our previous weeks, go check them out. What are you guys struggling with? Let me know in the comments. We'd love to help you out. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you like this channel. Good luck out there.